building the foundation here on the NFL opening line report. That's exactly what we're doing, guys. So we're going to start off with the AFC East first. Of course, it finished with the Buffalo Bills being the only team that made the playoffs last year. And Teddy, I'll tee it up for you. The Bills, 13-4. They also went 10-7 against the spread. They were 5-1 in division, including going 8-0 at home during the regular season. But Teddy, I'll throw it over to you. How are we starting off with the Buffalo Bills, top of the division last season?
Well, the Buffalo Bills, and we're going to start with this year's win total sitting at 11.5, heavily juiced to the over. You make an argument that it's a moral equivalent of 12 for Buffalo. 11.5 minus 160 to the over, 11.5 minus 155 to the over. The Bills, the single highest line team for wins this year. And we'll talk about why when it comes to schedule for Buffalo. Last year, the Bills went 13-4. 2023, 11-6. 13-3 in 2022. 11-6 in 2021. 13-3 in 2020. So we're talking about a team that each year this decade has gone, they've made the playoffs each of the last 6 years. They've been in first place each of the last 5 years. Although it's worth noting, 11-6, 11-6. Twice in the last 4 years. 11-6 does not cash over bets. And of course, prior to the last 6 years, the Bills hadn't won 10 games since 1999. So, Sean McDermott now in his 9th year as head coach. GM Brandon Beane has been here since 2007. He's engineered this entire turnaround for Buffalo. Offensive coordinator Joe Brady, defensive coordinator Bobby Babich, both in their second season. The Bills changed coordinators after the 2023 campaign on both sides of the football. Both guys that McDermott hired have returned for another year. The Bills were plus 24 in turnovers last year. And if there's one stat that stands out for Buffalo, that's the stat that says, wow, that's how they won, 13 games. Plus 24 turnovers. Now, note how far that is from the rest of the league. The number 2 team was plus 16. There were 8 turnovers better than anyone else. The number 3 team was plus 12. So basically, the Bills were off the charts good when it came to turnover differential. So we don't expect a team with a good defense and an elite quarterback to have a negative turnover differential. We don't expect that much regression from Buffalo this year. But plus 24, they ain't getting plus 24 in 2025. I wouldn't expect, although certainly the history shows that teams that have huge turnover margins one year don't necessarily have them the next. Last year, yards per play offense tied at number 6, 5.9 yards per play offensively, much better than average. The whole league was between 5.0 and 5.9 yards per play on defense. Really, the defensive yards per play numbers last year aren't great, although I will talk about them for a handful of teams. But Buffalo was middle of the pack in that regard. They were middle of the pack in terms of losses due to injuries. They were 5-2 in one-score games. And again, you expect teams with a good quarterback and a good defense to have a winning record in the one-score games. I'm not expecting significant regression from Buffalo in that regard. So that's our starting point for the Bills. We talk about offseason moves. And look, the biggest additions, Joey Bosa, Josh Palmer, were replacing guys they lost, Von Miller and Mac Hollins. Bosa at defensive end, Palmer at wide receiver. Miller, defensive end, Hollins, a wide receiver. That being said, this was a team that really was much more concerned about re-signing their core players. Josh Allen got the contract extension. Greg Rousseau got re-signed, $80 million. Khalil Shakir got re-signed. Terrell Bernard got re-signed at linebacker. Ty Johnson at running back got re-signed. Reed Ferguson got re-signed at long snapper. Damar Hamlin came back as well. So in terms of the big free agent signings, Michael Huck, the defensive tackle, Joey Bosa at the edge, Palmer at receiver. But this wasn't a team that was going to be able to make big moves in that regard. Larry Ogunjobi at defensive tackle. They weren't in a position that they were going to dramatically be able to add impact free agents. That being said, they were able to retain the core of their team, and the roster's built pretty well. You look at the draft. Maxwell Hairston, the cornerback in the first round, TJ Sanders in the second round, the edge rusher Landon Jackson in the third round, the defensive tackle Deion Walker in the fourth round, cornerback Jordan Hancock in the fifth. So it's a team that certainly, when it comes to the draft, cornerback, defensive tackle, edge, top 5 picks all on the defensive side of the football. That's where they felt they needed to spend their draft capital. We talk about the schedule for 2025. And there's one big negative. They're bottom 5 in rest edges. They don't get a lot of rest edges. Opposing teams have rest edges against Buffalo. But we look at this year's win totals to evaluate this year's schedule. And this is one of the top 5 easiest schedules in the NFL. AFC teams get 9 home games, 8 road. AFC East teams face the AFC North and the NFC South. Not the 2 toughest divisions in the NFL this season by any stretch of the imagination. The Bills 3 extra games, KC, Houston, Philly. Tough, but again, the meat of the schedule is not. And you look at the start for Buffalo. The Jets, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Pats, the Falcons, the bye, the Panthers. After the Ravens in week 1, they've got a chance to get off to a great start. 4 of the first 5 are at home. There's reason, ample reason, and good reason why Buffalo is lined higher than any other team in the NFL this season. The schedule is easy. The roster's loaded. If you like this type of analysis, give us a like. Thank you. We appreciate it. It makes all the difference in the YouTube algorithms. If you haven't commented, give us a comment below, whatever you like. And then again, Drew and I will get in there multiple times, both of us, in the next couple of days to answer your comments. So we appreciate the likes. We appreciate the comments. 200,000 of you following us on YouTube. Do it now if you haven't done so already. Tons of free content every day. And, of course, you'll get the instant alerts when these videos go live. The season win report comes July 2nd, noon Pacific time. I need a deadline. That's why I'm like, yeah, we're doing it this day. And then, give me 5-6 weeks out and I can get all my work done for it in plenty of time. So that's my deadline is noon, July 2nd. It's a Wednesday. You can get the report for $199. It gets you every play. But frankly, the best deal is if you get any type of season package, you get the report absolutely free. Just visit my page, wt.buzz/TC.
Great start here, Teddy. Top of the AFC East division. We'll head to the next team. We'll go down in order of how they finished last season. We got the Miami Dolphins last year, 8-9, their overall record, guys. 7-10 against the spread is what I'm seeing. 8-9 over under as well here, Teddy. So a lot near 500 for the Dolphins. Of course, injuries have been a little bit of an issue at the quarterback position, a little bit of an issue, putting it lightly, for this team over the last couple years. But I'll throw it over to you. 8-9 last year for the Dolphins. How are you viewing the Fins this season?
So ironically, you're like, okay, we'll put them in order of how they finished last year. I have them in alphabetical order. So Buffalo, Miami, New England, New York. Same thing for the AFC, for the NFC. So in this one, it's easy. And the NFC East is not. They did not finish in alphabetical order. That being said, Miami in alphabetical order, the second of the 2 teams in the AFC East. And Miami right now lined basically 8.5 wins, juice to the under. So this is a team. It's basically, if you're taking the juice out of the equation, they're lined as an 8-win team, a sub 500 squad. I'm seeing 8.5 plus 130 to the over. So heavily juiced to the under on the 8.5 for Miami. Last year, they finished 8-9, second place, 11-6 in 2023, 9-8 in 2022, 9-8 in 2021. So this team's been pretty good, not great. And really, 3 of the last 4 seasons, they've been bouncing around 500. Head coach Mike McDaniel now in his 4th season on the job. Offensive coordinator Frank Smith also in his 4th season. Defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver in his 2nd season, so no significant coaching changes. Now, my numbers showed that last year, again, each week I write down my powering number. I track it on a spreadsheet. The powering number of their opponent the week the game was played. And based on those numbers, Miami, according to my numbers, had the 2nd weakest schedule in the NFL last year. Based on my powering numbers for their opponents the week the game was played. So they went below 500, 8-9 for the season, and they did it against a particularly weak slate of opponents. So you say that 8-9, yeah, they were worse than that. Now, they were slightly worse than average when it came to injuries. They finished -5 turnovers. Again, the -5 turnovers, it's not significant. The slightly worse than average injuries, it's not significant, at least not for this better. we talk about the offseason for Miami, and they didn't really have a whole lot of money to spend on free agency. They were hoping to invest in the offensive line and add depth in the secondary. I think they were able to accomplish one of those two goals. Not both of them. There are big concerns for Miami when it comes to their receiving core. I'm sorry, their cornerback core. And of course, Miami's put a ton of money into the offense. Tua has gotten paid. The receiving core has gotten paid. And that's left them with some fairly significant concerns when it comes to filling other roster holes. That's why Miami's not being viewed as a contender in this division this year, the way that obviously Buffalo is. Draft-wise, Kenneth Grant out of Michigan in the first round on the defensive tackle, also picked up Jordan Phillips, so a pair of DTs. But again, Jordan Phillips, the fifth round, they only had 2 draft picks in the first 4 rounds, 1 defensive tackle, 1 offensive guard, the kid out of Arizona who might be pretty good. But by and large, it's not a team that's likely to get a ton from the draft simply because they didn't have the top draft choices. When we look at who they were able to sign, James Daniels in the offensive line, Zach Wilson as a backup quarterback is nothing to be particularly excited about when it comes to talent acquisition for Miami. If they're going to make a run this year, they're going to have to make a run largely with last year's personnel. Now, this year's schedule, there are some real positives. All right. They have a top 5 rest advantage. It's multiple weeks in which they've got more rest than their opponents, or they catch their opponents on short weeks. They're bottom 10 in strength of schedule based on this year's win total, so easier than average schedule. AFC East teams face AFC North and NFC South opponents. There are 3 extra games: the Chargers, the Commanders, the Colts. So not necessarily easy in that regard. Both the Chargers and the Commanders are supposed to be pretty good. They do have, from a scheduling, hey, take note of this standpoint, they had a bunch of late cold weather road games at New England, at the Jets, at Pittsburgh, all December and January. That's not necessarily a positive sign for Miami. And again, we look at the personnel-wise, we're not thrilled with the Dolphins. They look to me very much like a 500-level team, which is about where they're priced.
New England Patriots, guys. We got New England Patriots last year finishing at the bottom of the division, 4-13 overall. We got them 7-10 against the spread, over under. More of an over team, 11-6 towards the over. So the Patriots, bottom of the division last year. You see them climbing up this year, TC?
Well, the market certainly do. New England's lined 8.5 wins, and they're taking over money. All right, they were 8.5 wins, plus 100, plus 130 even at the Westgate. And now I'm seeing minus 110, minus 120, minus 115 for New England at the 8.5 number. So a team that's been pretty bad. They went 10-7 in 2021, then 8-9 in 2022, 4-13 in 2023, 4-13 in 2024. So back-to-back 4-13 seasons, 3 consecutive losing seasons, and obviously it's a whole new staff for the Patriots. New head coach Mike Vrabel, new offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. I guess we'll call him a new offensive coordinator. What's his 3rd stint in New England now? But under Vrabel, he's a new OC here. It's a new offense for New England for what they have to learn. New defense coordinator Terrell Williams. So it's all new. Last year, they were bottom 5 in injuries, one of the 5 most injured teams in the NFL. They finished minus 11 in turnovers. That is significant. When that far back from neutral in turnover-wise. 4.8 yards per play on offense, near the bottom of the league. Defense was about league average, 5.5 yards per play allowed. So much of their problems last year, the defense wasn't good. The offense was even worse. Now, this team had money, and they spent it. They spent a ton of money. And, of course, they had many, many holes. They wanted to overhaul the defense. They wanted to overhaul the receiving core. They still had the offensive line issues. And you look at the free agents they signed. New England opened the checkbook. $104 million for Milton Williams at defensive tackle. Steph Diggs got $70 million. Carlton Davis at cornerback got $60 million. Harold Landry at the edge rusher got $43.5 million. Robert Spillane at linebacker. These are all free agents they signed. $37 million. Morgan Moses at offensive tackle got $24 million. Matt Collins at wide receiver got $8.4 million. Lots of guys coming to New England for the first time. It is a roster that was significantly overhauled via free agency. Now, obviously Steph Diggs making headlines for the wrong reasons so far already. They certainly still have issues at receiver and cornerback. In the draft, Will Campbell, the first pick they took, Travion Henderson, running back the second. So Kyle Williams in the third round, Jared Wilson as well at center. So 2 linemen, 2 skill position players in their top 4 picks, all on the offensive side of the football, a team that really tried to pay some attention to offense this offseason. Now, when we look at their schedule, we say, why the heck is this team who's been, again, I understand they put money in free agency and they had money to spend in free agency. I understand the coaching staff's been overhauled, but 4-13, this year they got to get a 5-win improvement in order to cash season win totals over. What the heck? Well, this is why. Patriots play a grand total of 5 games all year against teams expected to have a winning record. They don't play any games against teams that had a monster season last year. Only 3 games that teams had 11 wins last year. Second easiest schedule in the NFL based on this year's season win totals. Again, AFC East teams play AFC North and NFC South. Their 3 extra games, Vegas, Tennessee, and the G-Men. You look at the numbers, and again, there's power ratings there. There's a point spreads up for every game all season right now. The Patriots are favored 7 of their first 9 games, and they're plus 2.5 in another one. In an 8th game at Miami. Only game they're big dogs in is Buffalo, so there's legitimate reason to be optimistic about New England and their ability to start the season. Whether they'll be able to maintain it's another question, and whether they're going to be able to live up to the expectations that the markets have for them as being a 500 level squad or better is another question. But schedule-wise, the Pats have it real easy, and they did put a ton of money in the offseason into win now type of moves.
Like the analysis there, TC. I mean, usually tricky handicaps, teams that have those season win totals a lot different than last season. So we'll see what happens with the Patriots. Getting to the New York Jets up next, 5-12, finishing 3rd place in the division last season, just 6-11 money burners against the spread. They were an over team. I'm seeing 11-6 towards the over. But TC, what are we thinking with the New York Jets? We did have a question last week, which we always appreciate, in the comments below. What's your opinion on the Jets making the playoffs this season, TC? So I'll throw it over to you. New York Jets up next.
So let me start with this. If you like this type of analysis, please just give us a thumbs up. That's all we ask. 1 like button makes all the difference in the YouTube algorithms. Thank you. If you want to leave a comment below, we appreciate the comments below very, very much. Drew and I get into the YouTube comments multiple times, usually Monday and then again on Tuesday or Wednesday. Feel free to leave a comment. We will respond. And if it's a question, we'll answer it on the next week's show. So thank you for the likes. Thank you for the comments. And of course, if you haven't done so already, what do we got? 200,000 of you following the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Tons of amazing programming each and every week on this channel. I encourage you, check it out. Try us. Now, when it comes to the New York Football Jets, lined 5.5 wins, juice to the over. There's a 6 out there, basically plus 100. So even money in terms of, we'll talk 5.5/6 wins in the current marketplace. Now, and really with the juice, the Jets are lined to the 6-win team, whether you get them at 5.5 or at 6. Last year, they went 5-12 with Aaron Rodgers. The year before, Rodgers got hurt on the opener and they went 7-10. So they had a better record without Aaron Rodgers than they did with him last year. 7-10 in 2022, 4-13 in 2021, 2-14 in 2020, 7-9 in 2019, 4-12 in 2018, 5-11 in 2017, 5-11 in 2016. You got to go all the way back to 2015 for the Jets have even had a decent year. I mean, they've been pretty god-awful for a pretty long time. If you've been betting Jets win totals under, you've done fairly well. And when you look at the numbers from last year, again, they were -2 in turnovers. It wasn't a turnover problem. They had the number 2 defense in the NFL in yards per play allowed. Only Philly was better than the Jets when it comes to the defense. That being said, the offense only gained 5.2 yards per play. That was worse than average. They went 3-7 in 1-score games. They had more injuries than the average team. And the chemistry for the Jets last year was a team that found ways to lose games, not found ways to win them. Obviously, in the offseason, new head coach Aaron Glenn, new defense coordinator Steve Wilks, new offense coordinator Tanner Engstrand. It's worth noting for Steve Wilks, who just got rehired. I went back and look. I'm like, I feel like I've written bad things about Wilks many times. Wilks' last 5 jobs have lasted exactly 1 year. He got fired by Arizona after 1 year, fired by Cleveland after 1 year, fired by Missouri after 1 year, fired by Carolina after 1 year, and fired by San Francisco after 1 year. Last year, he was an advisor for the Charlotte 49ers in college football. So that's 6 straight 1-year jobs for Steve Wilks. I thought he was an interesting hire. We'll leave it at that. When it came to the offseason for the Jets and what they were able to do, again, this team had salaries, cap constraints. This team had significant issues when it came to guys they have to replace, veterans that have to go. There was lots of holes for the Jets to fill and not a lot of money for them to fill them. You know, they re-signed Jamin Sherwood at the linebacker. They re-signed Tony Adams at safety, but in terms of big moves, Justin Fields is the big move. And then Andre Sisco at safety, Brandon Stevens at cornerback. 3 additions in that regard. We'll talk about Justin Fields in just a minute. In the draft, the Jets actually had some capital this year. Offensive line, the number 1 pick, Armin Membo from Missouri. Tight end, targets for Fields in the 2nd round, and Mason Taylor. They got cornerback help. They got safety help. They got linebacker help. They got receiver help. I thought it was a solid draft for the Jets in terms of getting positions of need, and because they had so many positions of need, it was a concern. Now, there's still questions when it comes to the Jets secondary this year. I think they have they got issues at wide receiver. There's issues on both lines, offensive, defensive lines. But this is a team, again, last year with a lot of the same personnel, they were expected to be really good. The year before as well, they were expected to compete for the playoffs. And obviously never lived up to those expectations. But personnel-wise, they weren't bottom of the league. I don't think they're bottom of the league this year. This schedule, middle of the pack strength of schedule-wise, AFC East faces, again, AFC North and NFC South. There are 3 extra games for the Jets. They kind of got hosed here. Dallas, Denver, Jacksonville, 3 teams, all of which I think are going to be better than they were last year. 3 third-place teams from a year ago that should be better. Now, they have a bunch of home games down the stretch that are winnable. Carolina, Cleveland, Atlanta, Miami, New England. Winnable home games down the stretch. They face Aaron Rodgers week 1 in Pittsburgh. That'll be a lot of fun. For the question that, again, I remember that you brought up, Drew, do the Jets have a chance to make the playoffs? Yes. I think they do. And if I'm going to bet the Jets, I'll put it this way. The Jets, from a personnel standpoint, from a strength of schedule standpoint, if Justin Fields can be a little bit better than Aaron Rodgers was last year, and Aaron Rodgers was not good last year. And, of course, how many games did the Jets lose because of their kicker last year? Remember that? Missing those field. The whole season turned when they missed that field goal against Denver. What was that, week 5, week 6? They had a winning record at the time. They missed a field goal at home, lost a game they should have won, and everything went south for the Jets after that. A locker room that wasn't good. I think this locker room would be better. And if I had to make a bet, Jets not to make the playoffs versus Jets to make the playoffs, I'd make the latter, not the former. The Jets over is on my short list for the season win report coming at the beginning of July. Haven't bet it. It's on the short list. We'll talk about teams we like and put them, say, I'm leaning Jets over. Haven't bet it yet, but we might get there.
Teddy, time for this week's hot take as we are, officially at the halftime mark with the AFC East, NFC East coming up next. Great analysis there with Steve Wilks. 6 straight 1-year jobs. I mean, any of the managers out there watching the show would know this. Hiring is tough. Like, if you're a young kid in college, that's one thing, like hiring people, I found out it's just very difficult. You're sitting there in an interview. You got to figure this out. You're going to pay this person. Are they going to do the job? Are they not? Man, I know one red flag out there, and you'll learn this in college, but you'll even learn it more going on. When somebody is at a job very short, and then they do it again, and then they do it, that is a red flag. I mean, what's going on here with this? What do you think the Jets were thinking with this hire?
Well, it's so Steve Wilks has a lot of respect from guys around the league, and whether he's certainly someone who, new head coach Aaron Glenn respects. And that's what it comes down to, is someone that we can work with, someone that we trust the defensive schemes. And Wilks has certainly had a rough go of late, Drew. That being said, Glenn's a guy who's going to have his fingers all over the defensive side of the football.
Fair enough.
He really will. So from a play calling standpoint, we expect Wills to do it. But again, Glenn also a first-time head coach. You want to go with people you're familiar with and people that you like in that regard. If you like this type of analysis, give us a like. Thank you. We appreciate it. It makes all the difference in the YouTube algorithms. If you haven't commented, give us a comment below, whatever you like. And then again, Drew and I will get in there multiple times, both of us, in the next couple of days to answer your comments. So we appreciate the likes. We appreciate the comments. 200,000 of you following us on YouTube. Do it now if you haven't done so already. Tons of free content every day. And, of course, you'll get the instant alerts when these videos go live. The season win report comes July 2nd, noon Pacific time. I need a deadline. That's why I'm like, yeah, we're doing it this day. And then, give me 5-6 weeks out and I can get all my work done for it in plenty of time. So that's my deadline, is noon, July 2nd. It's a Wednesday. You can get the report for $199. We get you every play. But frankly, the best deal is if you get any type of season package, you get the report absolutely free. Just visit my page, wt.buzz/TC.